recording this. All right. So welcome to our webinar. We're going to be talking about the return of restock limits, what's been going on, how to prepare for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the sales holiday. We've got about a month left, a little less than a month left until Black Friday. So I wanted to get you guys some information on how restock limits work, what things you can do to move the lever. Unfortunately, I don't have a magic button that you can press. We do have some hacks that we can share, and then just also some strategies. All right, let's go ahead and share the screen. And let me know if you have any questions, if you have any input. I will also be asking some questions of you guys as we go along. Again, if you have any drastic drop in your restock limits in the last couple of days, please let me know. Just wanting to get an idea of how many, most people I know have been affected. So unfortunately, that's what we're all dealing with. All right, so let's talk about restock limits, the return of restock limits. What does it mean? How do you prepare for for Q4 to avoid disaster? What should you be thinking about? What should you be doing right now? And how can we set up systems not only for Q4, but also systems moving forward to keep us in the best position regarding inventory? I think we'll also talk a little bit about the difference between restock limits and storage volume limits. Some people do have storage volume limits, which is a completely different thing. So I might chat about that a little bit as well. All right, if you don't know me, my name is Chelsea Cohen. I am the co-founder and CEO of Restock. We're an inventory management software. Started out, because I was having my own troubles. I started selling on Amazon in 2014 and wanted to solve the problem because I couldn't find a solution. So started Restock, immersed myself in inventory for the past 4 years. I've spoken to hundreds of 6, 7, and 8-figure sellers regarding inventory. What are the best practices? And I've written over 50 articles, been on dozens of podcasts, and really kind of eat, sleep, and breathe inventory, and also how inventory can allow your business to be more profitable and increase cash flow, improve cash flow, and allow you to scale your business faster. So that's my sweet spot. That's my passion, my obsession. One of those things, the numbers heavy things that a lot of people don't really like to focus on. I like to focus on and develop systems so that you can systemize them in your business and, focus on the things you care about most, which is growing your business, marketing, and all of that. All right. So yes, restock limits are back. Interesting thing about this, we experienced restock limits 2020, 2021. Restock limits went away, as you know, at the beginning of 2022. And for the first, let's say, 4 or 5 months of 2022, I was saying, don't get lax. You will probably see restock limits returning. So please, let me end this poll. So please be prepared for that. And I believed that up until a certain point when Amazon launched something called Buy with Prime. They launched Buy with Prime. Buy with Prime basically says we have so much warehouse space that we are allowing people who don't even sell on Amazon to fulfill with Prime. So Shopify or other sales channels not selling on Amazon, it's not only that you sell on Amazon and Shopify, it's that you don't sell on Amazon at all, but you sell on Shopify, for example. We will fulfill your stuff because we have so much space. That to me was a signal that restock limits were gone for good. Of course, that's not the case. Restock limits came back about a month ago, and I will talk a little bit about the reason I think that is, but we'll save that for another slide in a few minutes here. So yeah, so restock limits are back. Let's talk about, first and foremost, what is the thing that restock limits most rely on? besides, you know, some of the funky algorithm stuff that we can't know from Amazon, some of it is seasonal, and that sort of thing. But what is the most important factor for Amazon when judging whether you're good at inventory management or not, and how much in terms of restock limits they should give you? The number one controllable factor is sell-through. And sell-through is, if you know IPI score, the Inventory Performance Index score. Your Inventory Performance Index score is a scoring system, a rating system that Amazon has to determine whether you're good at inventory or not. This, there is a threshold for that. That's 400, 400 in terms of your rating. If you are below 400, you're going to have something called storage volume limits. And storage volume limits are basically, you have a restock limit, which is a number of units that you are allowed to send in across your entire, not your entire catalog, but your entire storage type. So you have a separate restock limit for your oversized products and for your standard products. That is restock limits. You say, okay, you can only send in 8,000 units across that storage type, across standard products, standard size products. Storage volume limits come into play when you have less than 400 in terms of your Inventory Performance Index score. And that means that you also have a space allotment. So I was talking to a guy, he had probably 2,000 units that he was allowed to send in by restock limits, but couldn't create a shipment. So if you have this where you're not able to create a shipment, even though you have restock limits, you may have storage volume limits. And his limitation, when we looked at it, was actually the same space allotted to the size of a refrigerator. That was how small of a space that he had, and that was why he wasn't able to send in more inventory. So you need to make sure that your Inventory Performance Index score is good, and sell-through is the number one factor for this. Because if you look at excess inventory, your in-stock rate, your sell-through rate, and your stranded inventory, all those 4 points add up to your Inventory Performance Index score. And those sell-through touches every single one of those. So if you want to affect any one of these, focusing on sell-through would be the number one thing to focus on. So let me go ahead and share my screen again. All right, so if we know that sell-through is the number one factor for Amazon in determining the inventory performance, it's important to know the definition. And Amazon does give us the definition. So Amazon's sell-through is calculated by looking at your rolling 90-day sell-through rate. Rolling meaning that, you know, every day, the last day is rolling off of that. So what did you sell and what did you ship over the last 90 days? And let's divide that by the average number of units that you had at FBA. So that looks like this, units sold or shipped, and divided by the average units available. That equals your sell-through. That's how Amazon looks at sell-through. So if you have 9,000 units sold, but only 3,000 units that you're actually carrying, that is a monthly turnover, a monthly sell-through. And the number assigned to that would be 3. So if you're looking at your inventory dashboard and you're looking at your sell-through in your Inventory Performance Index score, and you see 3, then you know that you've got a monthly turnover. 3 is great. Any more than 3, you're probably a little bit inefficient in terms of how much you're sending in. Maybe you have to do that because of your restock limits, but you don't want to send in too often that it's actually costing you more money in shipping to create these shipments. But 3 is a good number. More realistically for most people, between 1.5 and 2 is probably a more realistic number, but working closer to 3 and further away from 1. 1 is a quarterly turnover rate, meaning you're turning your inventory from the point you get it in stock to the point you sell through it every 3 months, right? And that would be represented by you sold 9,000 units, you carried an average of 9,000 units, for example. right? So understanding this and understanding that is the first thing. So when you're thinking of restock limits, you want to look at the 60 to 90 days of sales. You want to boost that. Now we only have a month left before we get into November and into Black Friday. So right now is an incredibly important time. And I'm going to talk about some systems to adopt to be able to prepare your storage space for maximizing your profit. So we need to understand utilization. Utilization is how much you are using up of that restock limit. This will allow you to know, based on your restock limits and your utilization, if I took my restock limits and I subtracted utilization, how much am I currently using already, then I would get my maximum shipment quantity. How much can I actually send right now? So we look at available inventory, all incoming shipments, working in transit, receiving, any unfulfillable inventory, and that's your utilization quantity. Amazon said that removal orders and reserved inventory were not included, but we have seen that they have been oftentimes included in utilization quantity. So we can talk about, I'm going to talk about some of the things that you can do to improve your utilization, because sometimes Amazon can, based on these calculations, can overinflate it based on some things that you have going on in your back end. All right, so if you think about utilization, think about your average units available, right? When you reduce your average units available, you reduce your utilization, then you improve your sell-through. So if you've got things inside of your business that are falsely inflating your utilization, that is affecting you for 90 days. So getting that off as soon as possible will help it to roll off sooner, right? That's why it's important to have these things, have systems in place to track these things. Here's a case study, a quick case study of someone who was able to, within a handful of months, double their sell-through rate, go from a 1 to a 2, simply by putting some measures in place to strategically increase sell-through, to remove things that weren't supposed to be there, to send in smaller orders more frequently, and thus improved the IPI score and the restock limits for his business. All right, so here's a couple of things that you can actually do to help bolster your restock limits. First would be, you want to increase your sell-through, right? We've made that a point. So anything you can do to increase that top number, the sales number, and to decrease the bottom number, how much inventory you're actually holding at Amazon. You want to send in smaller orders more frequently at this time. So what can you do to reduce the total number of, like, don't send in 2 months worth of inventory if you don't have to. Amazon encourages you to send one amount of inventory for the Black Friday, Cyber Monday period, and then another batch of inventory for the rest of the holiday season. If you're concerned about your stuff actually being able to check in, and that's why you're sending in smaller orders more frequently, I'm going to tell you about a tip for getting your inventory checked in more quickly, using specific carriers and using specific requests from your 3PL. All right, so smaller orders more frequently. You want to be able to use fulfilled by merchant if possible. Even if you're only selling on Amazon, even if Amazon's your only sales channel, it should not be the only way that you get inventory or you get orders to your customers. You can still take sales on Amazon even if your stuff hasn't checked in, as long as you have the ability to fulfill using some sort of outside fulfillment center. So being able to fulfill by merchant is very important. The other thing that does is, if you're holding some inventory at a different location, it's not being counted on that bottom number of your average units for your sell-through. But the sales of your merchant items are being counted on that top number. So you're reducing the number down here and you're increasing the number at the top to help to kind of on both sides of the equation improve sell-through. So that's one of the benefits of having merchant fulfilled. The other benefit is, obviously, if your stuff is not being checked in because of restock limits, you're not completely out of luck in terms of being able to sell to your customers. And then lastly, you have multi-channel fulfillment. Multi-channel fulfillment is being able to fulfill, let's say, your Shopify via Amazon, being able to fulfill your eBay sales via Amazon. Multi-channel fulfillment sales are counted towards your top sales number. They're counted towards your sales in terms of your restock limits. So these are all things that are beneficial to boosting restock limits. All right. Now let's talk about what are those things that hurt your restock limits. Some of the things that hurt your restock limits, let's look at all of these. So stockouts, obviously stockouts. Amazon's looking at your total sales for 90 days, not what you could have sold, but what you actually sold. So when you stock out, that reduces that top line, that top number, and thus affects your restock limits, and it affects your IPI score. So stockouts are a hit against you. Excess inventory that bloats that bottom number reduces or worsens your scores across the boards. And then stale shipments. When we talked about utilization, we talked about that there are some ways that utilization can be incorrectly represented, right? It says you have, let's say you have actually 2,000 units in Amazon, whether fulfillable or unfulfillable, and it's saying that you have 2,250. Well, where is that extra 250 coming from? The place that you want to look is in your shipments. If you've created a shipment and it's not been used and you forgot to cancel that shipment, that inventory that you said you were going to send in is counting against your utilization. Amazon's saying you can't send anything in because of this number, and we're going to put that as a strike against you in terms of your sell-through. So you want to go in and, as a first action, and maybe on a monthly basis, check and make sure that you don't have any stale shipments that are not being used. Maybe they're hung up in working status. Get rid of those, delete those, so that you can improve your utilization. Then you have slow sellers. Slow sellers also hurt your restock limits because they're sitting in that bottom utilization and they are not moving. They're not adding to your top line sales. All right, so we're going to talk about strategies. What can you do to actually fight against this? So some of the action steps. So we talked about deleting unnecessary inbound shipments just now. Creating flash sales. How are you going to be able to actually move inventory? Removal orders. Or liquidation. Liquidation. Is there something that you have to liquidate? We'll talk about, I don't believe fully in liquidation all the time. I also don't believe in removal orders unless absolutely necessary. And we'll talk a little bit about that and how to systemize this. How do you systemize flash sales, liquidation, avoiding stockouts, overstock? There are ways to create systems for your inventory team and for your marketing team. And we're going to talk about that, something I call inventory-minded marketing. And it's a strategy you should start implementing right away so that leading into the holiday season, you are in the best position that you possibly can be for Q4 sales. Setting up FBM. Remember, we talked about how this boosts sell-through. It also is your parachute, right? If your extra parachute. If Amazon's not going to fulfill your stuff, you need to have a way to fulfill it. Activating multi-channel fulfillment. This can boost your sell-through as well. And then if you have been invited to Amazon warehousing and distribution program, it's a new pilot program. It is the reason that I think restock limits are back. Amazon has a ton of warehouse space. They actually, for the first time since 2015, they reported a down quarter in the first quarter, by $3.8 billion in loss on their books, mostly because of warehousing and logistics purchasing. So they have all this warehouse space. They started this thing Buy with Prime, which we said, opened up the ability to store and fulfill non-Amazon sellers' inventory to their customers. The same week that they introduced restock limits, they introduced Amazon warehousing and distribution program. What that is Amazon wants to be your 3PL. They want to house your inventory. They want to fulfill your inventory. They're going to charge you competitive rates for it. Depending on the time of year, it may or may not be more or less competitive or competitive in terms of the rates. I think when I was running it, depending on what you're being charged by your warehouse, it is possible that during the off seasons, it is more cost effective or just as cost effective. And during the peak seasons, like now, it may be a little bit more expensive. However, there is one thing that this program does. It waives restock limits. So what that is doing is it's incentivizing people to use Amazon warehousing and distribution, because any inventory that you send, your restock limits will be waived. You won't have to pay or you won't have to pay attention to whether you have any restock limits. Anything you send outside of the warehouse, you'll have restock limits, but anything that Amazon has, no restock limits, okay? I don't advise you to, if you're in this system or you're getting into this program, I do not advise that you close down your other 3PL, because it is a new system. It is not tried. It's not tested. There is a program called the STAR program, or the upstream storage program, that's done a similar thing on a larger scale with container shipping, and that has been fairly successful. I haven't heard a lot of complaints about it, but you just want to have that backup, right? So if you have been invited to this program, I would say, give it a shot, enroll in the program, and send some of your inventory there to help you to get around the restock limits. If you're not sure if you've been invited, search Amazon warehousing, search inventory or invitation or invite in your Gmail or whatever it is you use for your Amazon emails, and it may have gotten lost in your email. If not, try to send something to seller support, see if you can get invited to it. And yeah, it's worth a shot to try to circumvent your restock limit. All right, some systems to adopt. So faster FBA shipping times, figuring out how you can turn over inventory faster. We're going to talk about logistics flexibility, which is basically backup planning. You have good enough backup plans in place now, and also moving into the future, because we don't know what's going to happen with restock limits. We're hoping they'll go away after the new year, but we're not sure. Then min-max restocking. This is the system that you can put into place to create smaller orders more frequently as an automatic system. And then I mentioned inventory-minded marketing, getting your marketing and your inventory team into thinking with how to turn over inventory faster, recover some of that capital, free up some of that space, increase your ability to scale. All right, logistics flexibility. This is all about having a plan A, B, C, having ways to pivot no matter what happens. And in sharing these practices, I know several large sellers who adopt these practices. Talked to one of our clients who utilized this strategy, and she said that she hadn't stocked out since she adopted this. We've been used to, prior to 2020, operating in something called just-in-time inventory. Just-in-time inventory means that you send it in when you need it. You don't really have a backup. We could trust the supply chain that when we order, 60 days later, it'll arrive. That's just-in-time inventory management. We now are in just-in-case inventory management. We have to store inventory at different places because we can't rely on our supply chain. We can't rely that things will get where they should be, when they should be. There's lots of delays, port closures, strikes, all sorts of chaos. So we need inventory in different places just in case. When it's 2015, I adopted a golden rule. Never let anyone have all your stuff. Anytime I ran out of stock, it was because I relied on one single person or one single point to get my inventory to where it needed to be. And I didn't have any backup options. So setting up so that you never let anyone have your own stuff or all your stuff. What does that look like? Both on a global level and then on a local level. Right now, we're gonna focus on some local stuff because your stuff should already be in the country that you are going to be selling in, because we're so close to Black Friday. What you'll do is, if you're shipping a container, instead of ordering a full container and putting on a boat and crossing your fingers and hoping that it arrives, what you want to do is you want to order a container plus, let's say, a month or maybe 2 months worth of inventory in addition. To control your cash flow, you'll want to negotiate with your supplier to hold that inventory, let's say for the next 2-3 months, and only pay and not pay them for that inventory. They'll often be able to hold that inventory without charging you storage. So you're not incurring storage fees on this extra inventory. And then you'll want to see if you can negotiate to only put the 30% down on the full order. And then on let's say the 70% or whatever your payment terms are, you only pay for what they ship. So you pay for the 70% on the ocean freight, and then you pay nothing on the additional inventory. Then you have that inventory sitting there ready to go so that if something goes wrong in your ocean shipment, you can send the additional inventory by air, but you only incur the cost of air shipment if you absolutely need to. It gives you that flexibility to be able to come back from a challenge. Similarly, and this is probably more applicable right now, most immediately, apply the same philosophy to your local inventory. Just as you have a container and then you have extra inventory sitting at your suppliers, you would send a less than truckload or a full truckload to Amazon, and you would hold extra inventory at your 3PL so that if something happens, let's say your stuff is not getting checked in, like many people have experienced in the last year, inventory not being checked in for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. What is happening with that? And I'll talk about what is happening and how can you get around that happening. But having extra inventory to sit so you can ship small parcel delivery, it's going to cost you more, but it's going to be more reliable. It's going to check in pretty much immediately. Small parcel delivery gets unloaded directly into the warehouse. So your delivery time is very close to your check-in time. Then, of course, we said fulfilled by merchant. I want to talk a second before we go on about why your stuff could take forever to check in. Why is it that I send my inventory and I see it's been delivered, but it hasn't been checked in, and it's 3 weeks and it's 4 weeks? What is going on? You need to understand the way that Amazon logistics works right now. And this is stuff, I'll just start by saying this is stuff that I learned from talking to 3PL owners. These people are invaluable. They know so much about this side of the business, and they're oftentimes, we treat them like order takers. We say, hey, here's my shipment. Here's the packing slip from Amazon, and we send it to them and they go and they fulfill that order. But what if we reached out to them and said, hey, what is the best way to send this in so that it gets checked in as quickly as possible? How can I prevent this 3 weeks check-in time, right? Delay. They actually have answers to those questions. And this is how I learned what I have learned. And that is that Amazon controls a lot of the trailers. They actually own a lot of the trailers that come into Amazon and bring goods to Amazon. They hire independent companies, or they hire carriers that have contracts with them. And those contracts say, bring this trailer, drop it in our parking lot, pick up an empty trailer, and you can go and do it all over again. Or simply drop your trailer and, you know, we'll give it to you later. That system worked really well for Amazon until they get backlogged. And last year we had a lot of problems because they had, within a span of three months, 400,000 people turned over in their warehouses. They have had a lot of staffing problems. And so when you have a bunch of trailers that are being dumped and no one to unload them, that is a recipe for disaster. And that's why you have 3 weeks to check in, 4 weeks to check in. I have experienced where I've missed Christmas because my inventory was lost before Christmas and then found right after Christmas for these reasons. So you want to know, how can I get around this? How can I avoid having Amazon drop my stuff in a parking lot indefinitely? And the way that you do that is by requesting from your 3PL something called live unload. Live unload is a process by which you are requesting a company who's not obligated by Amazon to drop their trailer. They're actually delivering and they're unloading directly into the warehouse. So when they show up, they're actually unloading and driving away with an empty trailer. It may take a day or two for that inventory to then be scanned in, but it's not going to take weeks because it's sitting right on the dock, waiting to be checked in. This is also why small parcel delivery is able to be checked in pretty quickly, because they're not dropping it in the middle of a parking lot. It's sitting there on their dock, it's getting checked into their dock, and it's getting checked in the next day or two. So live unload, one of the companies that is recommended is Uber Freight, does live unload, but you can just call your 3PL and say, hey, tell me about this live unload. What do I need to do? It's going to cost you a little bit more than Amazon's fees, because Amazon has, you know, the best fees, obviously. But if it means getting your stuff checked in or not, it would probably be worth it to many sellers. The thing that you should know is that your inventory is not going to be insured on that trip unless you have cargo insurance or unless you get insurance through your carrier. So ask your 3PL about that, or maybe you already have cargo insurance. So you need to just know that your inventory won't be insured until it checks in, unless you're shipping through Amazon. All right, let's go ahead and jump back into the slides. All right, I want to talk about something called min-max restocking. This is the way to systemize creating smaller orders more frequently. It's a way to ensure you don't run out of stock, ensure you don't overstock, and also to find a way to finally take a large portion of the burden of inventory management off of your shoulders as the brand owner normally, and give a lot of these tasks to your virtual assistants, your inventory managers. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of inventory. All right, so what is min-max restocking? Min-max restocking is essentially, I'll talk to you about it in terms of how I discovered it. So I discovered min-max restocking. I went to a warehouse, actually a print-on-demand facility, and they had to always have paper and ink to do these print-on-demand books, because they always had to be able to turn around that inventory really, really quickly. So if they ran out, their business basically stopped. So they had the paper, huge rolls of paper that they ran through the printers, and they had these huge vats of ink, and they would keep these on a weighted system. And when the, let's say the paper being used got down to a certain weight, it would trigger something in the computer that says, hey, you're at this minimum weight, you need to stock up to the maximum weight. And it would say, you know, stock up to the maximum weight, use it through to the minimum weight, then stock back up to the maximum. And it had this thing on a system, referred to this as min-max restocking. All right, you set a minimum, you set a maximum. The minimum would be your buffer stock. How much inventory do you want to have available at any given time at FBA or at your warehouse? You can use this for FBA, you can use this for your warehouse. It's going to reduce your storage fees, reduce your stock outs, optimize your inventory levels, and like I said, allow you to systemize this process so that you can pass the process on to someone else to manage. So you'll want to have buffer stock. Let's say a good range right now is, we like to say 30 to 60 days, 30-day minimum, 60-day maximum. Right now, if you're having some problems with relying on Amazon to actually get your stuff checked in, we're advising to bump up to 45 to 75. And then when you have more supply chain reliability, you could bump back down to 30 to 60. Some people go all the way up to 90. We want to, especially with restock limits, reduce that. But that is the basic concept of min-max restocking. For those of you, I know some of you are currently using SoStock. SoStock has min-max restocking built in. You can utilize it if you go into your transfers and switch to as needed, and then set a minimum and a maximum, and it will adjust things. I would use doing this in terms of in days versus in units, saying I want 30 days worth of inventory versus I want 300 units, is going to help you be a bit more flexible. But that would be how you apply min-max restocking. And then if you're using restock limits, we have the restock limits filter in SoStock. Your restock limits would be how you parse out your min-max, your maximum in terms of your restocking. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. We're gonna then jump quickly into this last topic, which is all about systems. How do we actually create systems to make all of this work? Let's share screen. All right, I call it the new role of inventory management. Inventory wasn't a topic that anyone really wanted to talk about in depth until 2020. I started building SoStock in 2018. We launched in 2019, worked very in depth with sellers for the first year and a half. I personally onboarded every single person that came in the software and talked a lot to a lot of sellers, PPC agencies, a lot brand management companies. And I wanted to know if, what are these reasons that we stock out? And a big reason, besides letting someone have all your stuff, the other reason was marketing into a stock out. There was, go to an event, learn this cool marketing tactic, apply it, and there's a product that really didn't have enough inventory to be able to withstand the increase in burn rate. So I'd ask, have you ever stocked out due to a marketing effort? Ask PPC companies. Almost one for one, you ask a PPC company, have you ever stocked out a client due to your marketing strategy? Yes, the answer is yes. So that tells me that there is this missing link between inventory and marketing, and they're not communicating. I actually had a client who ran a 20% off sale on Mother's Day, and the next month during Father's Day was canceling all his lightning deals because he was about to stock out. He did 20% off. He could have made full price sales and stayed in stock if he had really planned this out and really known. So it costs you a lot of money, not just in running out of stock, but the money you've spent to market that product, the discounts you gave, the PPC spend, the agency that you're paying to do this marketing, all of that money is being wasted because you're not planning with inventory in mind. So there is an additional loss that comes with stocking out when you stock out because of a marketing campaign. So we have to move inventory from being a reactive activity into being proactive. And the way to do that is to really start getting systems in to coordinate inventory and marketing. And I developed a term for this, was inventory-minded marketing. And the first thing I started talking about with this was just give a marketing plan to your inventory team and make sure that that your inventory can sustain what you plan to do with marketing. Eventually, I started realizing that we were letting the inventory team or the inventory role off the hook too much, and that to really develop the value, inventory should be providing reports to marketing. Stock out risk report, slow sellers report, liquidation report, and overstock report. These reports will help marketing to come up with even a better plan to increase revenue, to recover capital, to put back into other products that will be more profitable, to increase cash flow, to improve restock limits, and also to improve profit margin, because every month that you're not selling that product, you're getting fees, right? Storage fees. So less and less profit every single month. Let's talk about what does it actually take to put these reports together? What are the numbers that are most important? And then how do you work with this data to be most effective? You know, this is stuff, like I said, it is the secret to scale. Getting inventory and marketing, inventory, and cash flow to all work together and to increase profit will allow you to scale much faster. And that's really the mission that I had set out when I first started Stock, was I wanted to be able to keep more money in my business and help other people to do that, and wanted to be able to increase the ability to scale, because everyone was talking about scaling, but no one really had a solid plan for how to do it. Fintech companies come in, and the fintech companies say, you want to scale? The secret to scale is to give us, you know, to sign a contract and give us 12% of whatever we lend you. And we've got this idea of cash flow and funding as the same thing. You know, funding is not cash flow. Funding can create cash flow, but funding is not cash flow, and there need to be cash flow systems in place. And this helps to develop a way to control your cash flow better. So first, the Inventory-Minded Marketing Planner. This is a free template that you can download at sostock.com/tools. It has a video tutorial to walk you through how to use it. But you want to know, what velocity are you looking at? Are you looking at last year's sales? You know, what is the most important data for this particular SKU, right? Trend. Do we want to look at last year's sales versus this year's sales? Maybe you're trending 10% up. So maybe we're looking at last year's sales data, but we're also looking at the fact that we're 10% higher than that. So all of our numbers should be 10% higher. Do we want to look at adding additional sales growth? I'm doing a PPC campaign and I'm going to increase sales by 10%. Maybe your product won't sustain that. That's what we're going to find out when the inventory team runs all this data against your current inventory. Lightning deals or any sales event, you know, influencer campaigns, email campaigns. What is the date range that you're running that particular sale, and how many units are you going to move in that time? And then seasonal sales spikes. If you've got a product and you don't have data to back it up, but you know it's a summer product, what percentage increase during what time are you going to see potentially with that product? So that's the Inventory-Minded Marketing Planner. And then we have reports. And these reports you can, if you're using Stock, these are reports that are either within Stock or can be customized and created within Stock based on your particular parameters. If you don't have Stock, then you can use this data to, I guess, make some in a spreadsheet. So the first one is the Overstock risk report. If you're in Overstock, it's the Stockouts Future is what it's called right now. We should change the name since I'm constantly calling it Overstock risk Stockout risk report now. But Stockout risk report, if you're going to create this on your own, it's you look at total inventory. How much inventory do you have left, divided by the daily velocity, your sales velocity, right? That's going to give you your days of remaining stock. So you want to see how many days are you going to be stocked out? When is that stock out going to occur? If you're going to have it. So if you have a product that's going to be stocked out for 8 days, that's probably something that you could avoid. If the marketing team knew that, it could back off of some of the aggressive ads that they have, some of the less profitable ads. What if they were about to offer a coupon code or lower the price? They're not doing that thinking with the fact that they're going to run out of stock. They're going to drive you to a stock out. They could decide not to do that, and they could avoid the stock out potentially. That's what the stock out risk report is good for, is them adjusting their marketing to avoid stock outs. Then you have the slow sellers report. The slow sellers report, it looks at a minimum and a maximum. It's not the complete dud products. It's the products that you think that you could make this work, but it's not working well right now. Let's say that your sales velocity, your daily sales velocity is between 5 units and 20 units. And to consider something successful, you need it to be above 20 units, right? If it's, getting it above 20 units, yes, it becomes successful. These are the red flag products. If you don't move these products, these are going to cost you every single month. You're going to pay storage fees. You're also going to potentially cut out the ability to send your best sellers in. So your best sellers could be selling, but you've got these slow sellers that are clogging up your space. It becomes a liability. This becomes a liability, not just in that it's starting to cost you money in terms of storage fees. It's also tying up your capital. So you're not being able to reinvest that money and turn that money over, the velocity of money and how turning your money over, how it makes you more money. I love that subject. We're not going to get into that. But the concept of being able to take that money back and reinvest it is something that applies here. And the other thing is that if you don't pay attention to these, it could run into falling out the bottom of the list. Instead of coming up the top, which is what you want, it falls out the bottom of the list and comes into the next category of reporting and of products, which is liquidation report. The liquidation is the product that you don't plan to restock. It's the dud product, whatever that means to you. In our scenario, we'll say anything below 5 units a day. So between 5 and 20, that's red flag. But below 5 units, I'm not going to restock it. It's a waste of time. I need to get my money back as fast as possible. I need to clear that space as fast as possible because it's just going to continue to cost me money. And I'm not going to be able to deploy that capital into something that's more successful for me. May be able to regain some of that space, send in more of my best sellers, and just clear that out. So these are all things that you should be doing right now. What are those slow sellers that I need to start moving fast? Do I need to start pricing more aggressively, dropping my prices, doing more sales promotions, doing some email blasts, say, hey, pre-Black Friday sale on this product, liquidation, bundle this product with some other products that are more successful, are moving more, finding ways to get rid of this before you even consider liquidating. If you have time, which we're starting to run out of time, but if you have time, considering how can I, maybe drop my price significantly and move it without having to actually use a liquidation service or create a removal order. Last effort would be create a removal order or use Amazon's liquidation system or liquidation program. But if you can sell it, even if you sell it at a slight loss, because you'll probably take a loss on, removal or liquidation. In some way, it's possible to take a loss. If you do it at a slight loss, but you sell it through Amazon, what's going to happen is that you're going to be able to actually have that applied to your sell-through. It's going to increase your sell-through, and all of those units will start counting to boost your restock limits. So that's what you want to do in terms of liquidation. How can I use my liquidation inventory, my slow seller inventory, to move it aggressively over the next couple of weeks to boost restock limits so that I can send more inventory in during, to the end of the year. Set your liquidation report. So we talked about liquidation report, slow sellers report, how to avoid stock outs. Again, all of these have to do with increasing your sell-through. And then we have the overstock report. So overstock report, let's say, anything over 90 days, for example. If I have product over 90 days, I'm overstocked and I need to figure out a way to move that inventory. This is something that you want to consider, that your liquidation product will be on this list. Your slow sellers could be on this list, but your best sellers could also be on this list. You may have overstock with your bestseller, and it may be reading like that because you know that the current sales velocity does not support you having less than 90 days, for example. But you know that you're going to, by the end of the year, because of Christmas, that you're going to sell through it. Be thoughtful with this at this period of time. You may have 120 days based on your current velocity, but really that you're going to sell through by the end of the year. But regardless, if you have products on here that you're overstocked on, even if they're best sellers, consider how you can move this inventory more quickly. Can you do a lightning deal? Can you do some sort of sale to boost this, to move this more quickly, to avoid fees? Because again, every month the products are less and less profitable until you sell them. Boosting restock, avoiding fees, clearing up space. And I like to think of, if you start thinking of inventory the way you think of money, right? Inventory can either be an asset or a liability, right? Or think of like a house, right? A house can either be an asset and it can make you more money, or it can be a liability and that's costing you more than it's making you. It's a money pit, for example. You're putting in so much money because everything is breaking. A car is another example. Inventory is the same way. It can end up making you money or costing you money. And if it's going to cost you more money, the better idea is to move it. But when we start thinking of, not only does inventory have a value in terms of giving me my money back, but it also has a value in buying restock limit, right? If we want to boost our restock limits, we can sell more inventory from our overstock to increase our restock limits. So we can buy restock limits. We can also buy rank with using overstock to promote a specific keyword, to target a specific keyword, to do a specific targeted campaign to increase our ranking somewhere. So thinking of overstock as an asset in that it can buy you or give you leverage for restock limits and recover capital, of course, restock limits, as well as ranking. So those are things to keep in mind. Last little note on this is, it gets fun when you have something showing up in your overstock report and also showing up in your slow sellers report. This is fun because you have to market that product, get that product ranking better, performing better, so that it will come out the top of the list and become a viable product and no longer be considered a slow seller. And now, based on the overstock report, you have the inventory that you can use to push that product to boost the ranking so that you move it out of that report. This starts to get into how the marketing team can really use these intelligently, use these reports creatively, and those marketing reports become a lot smarter, right? A lot more focused on inventory turn, a lot more focused on recovering capital, not just on generating revenue, but thinking as a business to recover capital, to invest in new product, to move inventory that's, you know, costing you more than it's making you, and just generally increase your cash flow and your profit, and help you to have a healthier business. I know this was a topic regarding restock limits. These are systems to help you in the short term. If you start applying this right now, it will help you in the short term to prioritize the right things, to clear some space out, to make sure that you've got enough room for your best sellers. And then long term, really helping you to maintain a good IPI score, maintain a healthy restock limits rate, and also cash flow, inventory management, and profitability. I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions, reach out to me at sostock.com/connect. We can, we have social media there. We have demos of Sostock if you are curious about how Sostock works. Free tools are there. And we have a 30-day free trial. Sostock.com, go there, 30-day free trial. And then lastly, I don't, you know, talk about this much, but we report on the news on a regular basis. If you go to sostock.com/news, you will see, you will be able to sign up for our newsletter. If you're already signed up for our regular emails, you'll get it on Fridays. And we report on all sorts of things having to do with Amazon, new fees. We've announced all of the new fees that have come out. I call them the Amazon fee stack. All of those fees that have come out, a lot of changes within logistics, a lot of changes within anything that tends to have to do with Amazon. Amazon changes, also the battle between Amazon and Shopify, what Shopify is doing to compete in the market. TikTok is coming out with, they're going to start competing against Amazon. Those types of things I find very, very interesting. We have a lot of fun. We write them up with a slant towards the seller, which isn't often done right now, is what does this have to do with the seller? What does this mean for Amazon? What does this mean for the Amazon seller? What are they saying and what does it actually mean to us, which is often two different things. So yeah, check out our news and connect with us. Hopefully this was of value to you. If you have any questions, reach out, and please have an awesome fourth quarter. Stay in stock, and yeah, happy to help, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Okay, bye guys.